Happy frickin' Friday, guys.
We hope you've had a great St. Patrick's week.
You didn't get too drunk?
Yeah, we didn't.
We didn't.
I
No.
don't even know what that's like anymore to live that life.
I mean, we should say that we're recording this prior to this, but we will not be
Partaking. Yeah.
Just because we're lame moms. We're cool moms, okay? But we're cool, very busy moms.
Yeah. I saw when I was driving around the neighborhood today, the community had a 5K.
I thought about joining it and then saw I was running, or saw I was working, and I was like, and just missed
Dang
it.
I was like, wow, those people, go you.
They're going to go drink tonight and make it worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't be me.
No.
I don't do that running thing anymore.
I will run when we move back to sea level.
Yeah.
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 Okay. All right. Welcome, Cadaver Crew.
Get your dark little minds right and settle in.
Class is in session and the cadaver is already on the table.
I'm B.
And I'm Sam.
And this is the Cadaver's Files. Well, today we're talking about St. Patrick because I'm sure you're curious, where does all of this celebration even come from?
An excuse for people to drink.
Well, it didn't start out that way. It started with a guy who became a saint.
Okay.
I know it's not really connected to like health per se or medicine, but St. Patrick's Day is cool and it's historic and it was super interesting. So
yeah, no, it's hard not to do a case file on St. Patrick's for our first St. Patrick's week, but next year I'm sure we can find different case files more related to health and medicine history.
Yeah. This is really focused on religion,
people being shitty,
slavery, immigration, all of those great topics. So yeah,
we're just going to walk on some tiptoes for a minute.
No, we got it. Okay, so who is this guy, St. Patrick? He's the best known patron saint of Ireland. That's who he is. One of the most successful Christian missionaries in history. So he was super good at converting people to Christianity.
Cool.
I guess. So he's credited with expanding literacy in Ireland through the monastic orders that he established, revising and codifying the Brehon laws, and converting the country to Christianity. That last part, there was already Christians there. He just converted a lot more than his predecessors. But we'll get into it.
Okay, so I feel like I should preface this. I was raised Southern Baptist. I still am faithful is the way I describe it. I don't agree with a lot of the things that the church does, but practice in my own way. So I feel like I should say that because I do feel like it allows me to say some of these things. One thing Christianity loves to do is say that this person came, did a great thing, and drove more Christianity. But always when you look back at history, the Christianity was already present, or the religion, I should say, was already present.
There was also a religion already in Ireland. Yeah. Its original religion. So they just converted a whole bunch of people. We'll get into it.
Yeah, I should get off my pedestal.
Yeah. So where did this even start? So very little is actually known about his early life. Most of the information that we know comes based on a writing called Confession, which he wrote. And it's about multiple things, but really that piece of writing was in order to defend himself about a confession that he made during his time and when he was studying religion. So many stories have been repeated throughout time that have been proven false about St. Patrick, and they're probably the result of exaggerated storytelling. But what we know is that in his writings, he mentions that he was born in Benavon of Tabernet. We don't actually know where that is. Yeah, it's a place that he mentions where he's from, but it's not someplace historians can pinpoint where it is. It's probably somewhere in the regions of Brittany, Scotland, and Wales. So probably Britain.
Interesting that he says, I'm from this place, but this place is not a documented historical place.
I mean, it probably existed at one point. Historians just don't know where it is now. His father was named Calporn, and his mother, according to legend, was Conchessa, a niece of the famous Saint Martin of Tours. Maybe not. His family was not particularly religious at all, and though his father was a deacon, it has been said that he probably just took this role because of the tax incentives and to make his family more wealthy, which they were.
I mean, he's probably not the first and definitely not the last. Hear me out.
And for those of you that don't know what a deacon is, like me, because have not been religious or been around religion a ton, it's an ordained minister or church official ranking below a priest, tasked with serving the community, assisting in services such as weddings, burials, other services as like that.
Ceremonial services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they help around whichever like church they belong to. They're essentially like a servant of the faith and speak to that and help out and do classes and whatever else the church needs. But they're like the lowest on the totem pole when it comes to rankings. And then for now, if you're interested, their tax incentives are based on housing incentives. So they get like a tax break on their living, like mortgage payments and stuff. Lots of people don't know that. So that's what a deacon is. His family was known to be wealthy. They're not particularly religious at all. So around the age of 16, a group of Irish raiders attacked his family estate, and then he was captured by these pirates and then sold into slavery in Ireland.
And his wealthy family couldn't get him back.
Well, they didn't know where he was, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'll stand by that. But I mean, you probably could find him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are some references that with him at the time of his capture, there were two women who might have been with him, and they're referred to as sisters, but Patrick himself doesn't mention them at all in his writings, and even if they were together, they probably were not blood related, but rather sisters in faith. So because his father was a deacon of the church and they had wealthy land, there's probably some sisters about, and so they probably got caught up and were also taken.
Yeah.
Upon reaching Ireland, Patrick was sold to a local chieftain named Milu of Antrim, and Patrick spent 6 years serving this chieftain, often in hardly any clothes and in all kinds of weather. He was a shepherd, of course, a shepherd slave. So if you're wondering what that was like back in the day, way back then,
I can't imagine it was great.
Not great. In the 5th century.
Yeah.
Here's a quote from a scholar, Thomas Cahill, who wrote a ton of books about westernization and colonization and the history of multiple different nationalities. So he knows his stuff, his history. Here's a quote about shepherd slaves. The life of a shepherd slave could not have been a happy one. Ripped out of civilization, Patrick had for his only protector a man who did not hold his own life highly, let alone anyone else's. The work of such shepherds was bitterly isolated, months at a time spent alone in the hills. The occasional contacts which one might normally seek out could bring their own difficulties. Like many other in impossible circumstances, he began to pray. He had never before paid attention to the teachings of his religion. He tells us that he didn't really believe in God, and he found priests foolish. But now there was no one to turn to but the God of his parents. So,
I mean, I think a lot of people have found religion in that sense. There's this super cool story of a girl I grew up with, and her mother was always religious and her father wasn't, and they were together but hadn't had any kids, weren't married yet, anything else. And he was serving overseas on a tour, and the helicopter that he was in got shot down and was going down. And the last thing he remembers is praying to God, who he had never prayed to before, and said, if I survive this, I will follow you for the rest of my life. Please just take me home to my friend's mom's name. And he survived. And like, I get chills every time I tell it. Would he have survived either way? Nobody knows. But I think that's when a lot of people find or reach to God for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have nothing else or no one else to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Patrick's faith continued to grow, and he believed that his prayer and devotion were what was keeping him alive in the cruel winters, especially. His slavery continued until he had a dream in which he received a message. And that message was, your hungers are rewarded. You are going home. Look, your ship is ready. So with only that dream, and as a young 20-something-year-old, Patrick set out on foot towards the sea, traveling 200 miles as a fugitive slave to the coast. He originally was refused passage on a merchant ship heading to Britain, and then he recounts that after he prayed for help, the captain of the ship sent for him to come aboard.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then 3 days later, he ends up back in Britain. So
wow. And so do we know how long he was a shepherd slave?
About 6 years, give or take. So he was taken at 16, and then he escaped in his 20s.
Okay.
Early 20s, relatively.
Yeah.
From what we can tell. So it's unclear where the ship landed in Britain, but in his writings, he described that they disembarked onto a land of desolation. And I was like, where's their desert in Britain?
Yeah.
I don't know where that is, but maybe it looked different in the 5th century.
Probably did. Yeah.
I mean, our world looks different now than it did even when I was a kid. So,
Yes.
yeah. It took them about 2 weeks to cross the desert-like landscape based on the description within his writings. The sailors taunted him endlessly about his faith and how nothing would help them, while starvation was also plaguing them. And so he recounts encouraging them to pray and trust in God, and shortly after, a herd of pigs appeared to provide for them.
I mean,
I mean,
if
we're
it's
taking
true,
it from one person, so it's
I
hard to,
agree.
you can't corroborate that story at all.
I
But
agree. And it's hard because, like, if it's true, how freaking cool, because where else are pigs coming from in the desert?
I mean, somebody lost them, a shepherd lost them.
But then they just happen to come across these guys that were starving. But then it's hard because he is trying to spread the Christian faith. So, of course, he's writing things that make people want to believe. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that you have to think about it a little bit. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, things happen like that all the time. So it could be just a really cool coincidence.
He's had
Also,
a few coincidences by now, though.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like maybe he's got a really good guardian angel looking out for him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I need one of those right now.
There's too many weird things in this world to say for sure. Yes or no. So, yeah, we'll just go with that. So, eventually, they reached a town where he separated from the sailors and made it back home, where his parents welcomed him back. That same scholar, Cahill, wrote, but Patrick was no longer a carefree Roman teenager because he was Roman Catholic. They were from Rome and they lived somewhere in Britain. He was no longer a carefree Roman teenager, hardened physically and psychologically by unshareable experiences, hopelessly behind his peers in education. He cannot settle down.
I mean, of course, he's hopelessly behind his peers in education. He was a slave for 6 years and didn't get educated for the last 6 years and had no one to talk to.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, he didn't feel like home was a place for him to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he remained home until another dream prompted him to leave. In that dream, he was visited by a man who he had met in Ireland named Victor, who came bearing letters, calls from the inhabitants of Ireland begging him to come back and walk among them. So he started to feel this call to return to Ireland, the place where he was held a slave. Motivated by this dream, he left his family and traveled to Gaul, where after many years of study, probably about 15 years or more, he was ordained as a bishop at Auxerre.
Okay.
Imagine 15 years of study.
I bet he caught up to his friends now.
Yeah, I bet he did. But at the same time, I wish that was still the requirement.
15 years?
15 years, you got to put it in. I don't know what it is now. It's probably a doctorate.
I think it is a doctorate of theology.
Yeah, that sounds right. But 15 years is a lot more than that. He was then determined to return to Ireland, but before he left, he confessed a sin to someone else in the Auxerre from his youth. So the sin that he confessed was something that happened when he was very, very young. This confession came back to kind of bite him, as his confessor brought it to light later and required Patrick to defend himself, resulting in that famous writing, Confession. So that's where we get a lot of this information, is because he's writing his like whole life story, because he has to defend his whole life story, because this one kind of asshole was like, oh, one time he told me that he did this. And I'm like, it's a confession. You're not supposed to share.
I was just about to say, aren't those supposed to be private?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of the whole point of doing it.
I know. Rude. I don't know what the status or level of the confessor,
The person he confessed
that he confessed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe they weren't held to the same standards. I don't know. Maybe they just saw him get famous and they were a little jealous. So they just said, well, he can't be this great because when he was 10, he did this. It's like, calm down.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, his mission in Ireland was to minister to the Christians already living in Ireland and to begin to convert the Irish. So that was the goal of him going back to Ireland. Most of the Irish people practice a nature-based pagan religion centered around a rich tradition of oral legend and myth. So they were just passing on their learnings from person to person through the family. So that's really what it was based on. It was very based on like the nature of the land.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as a reminder, because I think people forget about this, pagan just means a religion that's not mainstream.
I don't think I could have told you that off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything that's not the top 10 is pretty much considered pagan.
Seems like a little bit too much of a catch-all.
I mean, it just sucks because people think pagan is like generally witchcraft.
I mean, I guess if it's not in the top 10, then it could be.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that it just has a negative connotation associated with it because it's not a mainstream.
Yeah.
It's anything that's not a mainstream religion.
Yeah.
So that's why. Anyways, just thought it was interesting and that people should know.
Yeah, absolutely.
His arrival in Ireland was not a welcome one. They did not welcome him with open arms, to say the least, so he quickly moved north. Because of his knowledge of Irish culture and language, he was able to share the Christian message in a way that he knew people would understand and eventually believe it. For example, this is an interesting story. There's a famous story in which Patrick explains the Trinity using a shamrock.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is where we get our 3-leaf shamrock.
Yeah.
We actually don't know if this ever happened, but the story lived on, so
We'll count
it's
it.
still valid.
Yeah.
Because people believe in the story, so it makes it real. So if you know the Holy Trinity,
The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit.
yep, that's the one. If you know that one, the concept of a triple deity or a supernatural being represented in 3 aspects was a well-known concept already in Ireland. They traditionally followed the ancient goddesses, and of course, he replaced ancient goddesses, women, with the Holy Trinity. But
Yeah.
that's besides the point. So there was 3, Iru, Fulda, and Banba, and they were known through oral tradition as 3 sisters who gave their names to Ireland. They were essentially 3 aspects of the spirit of the land. The Irish people are very familiar with this. They also had the goddess Brigid, was likewise represented as 3 sisters who embodied the life force through healing, creativity, and productivity.
I like this.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Mhm.
See, not all pagan things are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. Just these powerful women taking care of the land.
Yeah.
So he used a similar concept that everybody was already familiar with, the Trinity, to explain the gospel, and that could explain why he was so successful in the end in converting a lot of people.
I think anytime you can make the relation, people are going to be more willing to latch onto it.
Yeah. Now, Patrick was not the first Christian missionary in Ireland. Christianity was already existing in some pockets, and Ireland was not some pagan, crazy country that needed to be saved as well. But Patrick was extremely successful in making Christianity super popular. Probably the most famous story concerning St. Patrick was his interference with the pagan festival of Ostara.
Why do we got to interfere with anything, though?
That's what I'm saying.
Just let people do their thing.
So the story goes, the High King of Tara at the time had declared that no fires should be lit in the land before the great bonfire on the hill of Tara to initiate the holiday. So they're about to have this cool-ass festive holiday, and the king says, we're going to light this fire on top of this hill first. And once we light that one, everybody else can light their bonfires.
Yeah.
In celebration. Patrick had other plans.
Of course.
He took his followers to climb the hill of Slane, directly across from Tara, and they lit their own bonfire. Said, ha, beat you to it.
It seems a little spiteful, doesn't
Seems a little like, I don't know. It just seems like, ha,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
just let them celebrate their thing.
I think he just did it to get in front of people. So.
Yeah.
When the king saw this, he was not happy, and so he sent soldiers to capture those who defied him and put out the flames. Patrick and his followers were able to sneak through the forest undetected by chanting a poem known as St. Patrick's Breastplate, or the Deer's Cry, aka they pretended to be a herd of deer.
I was about to say, they're not chanting something and sneaking through the...
It's like a song thing that they chant, but it basically is supposed to sound like deer calls. I just thought it was funny because I'm like, that's like so lame. They're just sneaking through the forest pretending to be deer, and the soldiers can't find them. And they're like, where are they? I can't put out the fire.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the group then came to Tara, and Patrick defeated the Druids in debate. I'm like, this is the most G-rated story of all time.
Yeah, it is. Deer sounds.
And then defeated the Druids in a debate.
Yes.
And won the right to preach to the courts of the High King Longahair and his queen and the chieftains. So then he gets in front of everybody powerful in the area, which I think was the goal in the first place.
Probably.
He's like, let me catch their attention, and I'll sneak in and I'll defeat some druids in a debate.
In a heated
debate, but educational and respectful at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I'll get to preach in front of all these important people. At the same time that he was doing this, the soldiers come back and they're like, High King, I can't put out the fire. So it must be like some holy fire because they can't put it out. I'm like, could you not find some water? Or...
Yeah, tell me why you can't put it out.
Right. It just says they couldn't put it out. And I'm like, did you try very hard, or were you just like, I was not prepared?
Did you try your very best?
Did you try your very, very best? Doesn't sound like it. But anyways, the story ends with many of the court converting to Christianity instantly. They're so willing to convert and leave all of their past religious faiths behind. And the king, who refused to convert, respected Patrick enough to free him and continue his mission of spreading the Christian word.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was like, all right, you're a well-spoken individual. Carry
Continue.
on.
Didn't win me over. You won a lot of my court over, but not me.
Yeah.
Continue.
So I thought that was kind of an interesting story. I think overall, the story seems from the articles that I read, Patrick is just going about and spreading his version kind of the gospel in relation to the Irish traditions and culture that already exist, and then creating like his own little brand, but obviously respectful enough to be like not disruptive into what's happening there.
Yeah.
He didn't come in and just shove it down their throats necessarily. He was just talking to them in a way that caught on, and then a lot of people ended up converting. So that same scholar that I've been mentioning, Cahill, writes on why Patrick was so impactful in Ireland. In becoming an Irishman, Patrick wedded his world with theirs, his faith to their life. Patrick found a way of swimming down to the depths of the Irish psyche and in transforming Irish imagination, making it more humane and more noble while keeping it Irish. No longer was baptismal water to be the only effective sign of new life in God. New life was everywhere in rank abundance, and all of God's creation was good.
Honestly, it's pretty cool knowing that he was a slave and lived this horrific life in Ireland and then returned to make the world a better place in the way that he saw it would be a better place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Patrick would eventually found Christian communities throughout Ireland, most notably the Church of Armagh, where Patrick would write his confession, codified the Brehon laws, and finally retire. The Celtic church that he founded differed in many ways from the church in Rome, in that it included women in the church hierarchy.
Yeah. Okay, we like him.
It dated Easter and used bonfires to celebrate Easter, so bonfires were a really big part of tradition. He also created a tonsure of monks, so they would shave their front of their head, unlike the Romans would shave the top of their head and just had hair
on the front.
Like a crown.
Oh, yes.
Around. And then his would like they shaved the front. And then also superimposed a sun on, which is an Irish symbol, onto the Christian cross, which is now called the Celtic cross.
Wow, I never knew that's where that origin came from.
Kind of all these things are tied to him.
Yeah.
You never knew.
Yeah.
So the monasteries he founded or encouraged became centers of literacy and learning, which would serve to collect and preserve the written records of Western civilization after the fall of Rome. So they really took all of whatever survived from Rome, they took and copied in Ireland. He was a real big champion of the causes for women, the poor, and slaves.
We like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't seem like he was too bad of a guy.
No, not too bad. There's just lots of stories about him that ended up being not so true. Like, there's a story that he got rid of all the snakes in Ireland, which is not true. So, how do we get to St. Patrick's Day? Because right now, in this story, he's still not a saint. So, St. Patrick's Day is actually the day of his death, which is March 17th. We don't really know what year that was when he died, but probably around 460 CE.
Okay.
So in the 5th century sometime. Technically, Patrick was never actually canonized by the Catholic Church, which is becoming a saint, being recognized. During the time he lived, there was no formal canonization process in the Catholic Church, so he was likely just proclaimed a saint by popular opinion.
Popular vote.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He just became one because people were like, hey, he should be a saint.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was no official dubbing him a saint until much, much later. So an Irish priest, much later, Luke Wadding, was determined to honor St. Patrick every March and convinced the Universal Church to declare March 17th as the Feast of St. Patrick.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how we kind of got St. Patrick's Day. Celebrations started around the 9th and 10th centuries, so a little bit later.
Yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah. Now there was probably things going on, but it wasn't as recorded. And then because St. Patrick's Day falls during the Christian season of Lent, Irish families traditionally attend church in the morning and celebrate in the afternoon. And since Lenten prohibits against the consumption of meat, that was waived during St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
So people danced and feasted on the customary meal of Irish bacon and cabbage. Starting in the 17th century, settlers in America started new traditions. St. Patrick's Day parades and feasting on corned beef and cabbage were all American creations, not Irish.
We always got to put our own twist on things, you know?
Gotta go big.
Yeah.
The first ever St. Patrick's Day parade was held on March 17th, 1601, in St. Augustine, Florida, which was a Spanish colony at the time.
I like that it was in a colony that's also named after a saint.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
It's funny. They really like their saints.
Yeah.
So parades and celebrations really picked up in pace in 1762 when homesick Irish soldiers serving in the British military marched in New York City. From there, celebrations hit Chicago, Boston, and other early American cities. Yeah, so before America was America, they were here just because they were serving in Britain's army. They wanted to go
Spreading
home.
some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were just having their own little parties to celebrate their heritage. And then the Great Potato Famine hit.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. And this also
Bad
played a
one.
factor. Not good. In 1845 and over the next 6 years, close to 1 million poor and largely uneducated Irish Catholics immigrated to the U.S. to escape starvation.
As one does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to starve either.
No.
Fun fact, an estimated 40% of Americans are descended from people who passed through Ellis Island Immigration Station during the 6 decades of operation.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
That's a significant amount of people that came here.
Yeah, just during that short amount of time.
Yeah.
Through that one immigration station. 40%. That's so much. Yeah. These immigrants were despised, obviously.
As immigrants tend to be. Yeah.
So not great on America, making it hard for them to find jobs or homes. And then when the Irish Americans did celebrate St. Patrick's Day with a parade, newspapers portrayed them in offensive cartoons as drunk, violent apes or monkeys.
We in America love the ape or monkey
It's gross.
reflection. It is gross. It's disgusting.
People suck.
Yeah.
Eventually, with numbers, the Irish gained political recognition and respect after many years of discrimination. So, because there were so many of them, they were like, hey,
We're sticking around.
Yeah, we should make sure we have enough political power and pull and vote for the same candidate and make sure we get what we want.
Yeah.
So they started, political campaigns and parties and things like that. So, with that, here are some fun facts about St. Patrick's Day. Why green, you may ask?
Yeah.
When St. Patrick was known for blue.
Why was he known for blue?
That was his color.
Okay, but why?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know why he was known for blue, but it was a very specific type of light blue that he was known for.
Interesting.
So green comes from, 1, the Emerald Isle, which Ireland is known for because it's luscious and green.
Yeah.
And 2, the shamrock.
Because of the Holy Trinidad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Picking a shamrock and placing it on the label was very popular during the time. And then eventually this turned into Irish using green to identify themselves politically for the United Irish Uprising in 1798. And their clothes and uniforms were dyed green to identify themselves.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's how green has kind of come to.
And the country's flag is green, right? And so.
I mean, it has green in it. It also has
green,
2
white,
other
and
colors. Yeah.
Right? Green, white, and orange.
So speaking of green, we all know that the Chicago River is dyed green every year.
Yeah.
And this started in 1962 when the city pollution control workers used dyes to trace illegal sewage discharges in the river and realized that green might be a cool way to celebrate. So they were using dye to see what people were putting in there. And they're like, oh, we should just use this for the party.
Yeah.
We
should make this a main attraction.
So, and they were like, if our job can do one thing, it's dye a river green.
Yeah.
So that year they released 100 pounds of green vegetable dye in the river, which was enough to keep it green for a week.
Wow. That's a long time because let me tell you, I always assumed this stayed green for a week. We just had this conversation at family dinner in the last couple of weeks. And it does not. It barely stays green for 24 hours.
Yeah, it only stays green for a few hours now.
Yeah. Which is probably better for the environment.
Yep. Yes. I literally have a bullet point right here that says, to minimize environmental damage, only 40 pounds of dye are used now, and the river only turns green for a few hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just always thought it was green. Maybe there was something in my mind that thought it was green for the whole month. the remainder of the month after the 17th.
Wow, that would be a lot of green dye.
Well, it's not like I specialize in dye and how long it hangs around in the river. I don't know how fast that river moves. I don't know nothing. Okay.
Well, now you know it only lasts a few hours.
Yeah.
So if you're in Chicago, you better go for
Yeah.
that few hours.
Yeah.
So that is the story of St. Patrick and St. Patrick's Day.
Interesting. I just think it's so funny how we love to make holidays and celebrations around things that really don't connect. And I think this guy probably deserves to be celebrated. It sounds like he tried to do some really cool things, and it sounds like he wasn't a total dickwad in the process, which is we don't hear a lot about in history. So I'm not saying he shouldn't be celebrated, but it's just funny because now St. Patrick's Day is this huge drinking celebration. And I'd never once even looked into or thought of the history of St. Patrick.
Yeah, I know. It's just very, I think people like to have an excuse to celebrate.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, remember that guy that did that thing that one time?
Yeah.
We should make it a holiday.
Yes.
As an
I
excuse.
don't know nothing about him, but we're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he converted some people. So let's just roll with it.
You think in Ireland they still celebrate by going to church in the morning?
Probably. I mean, yeah, that's I was reading about all the different ways people celebrate, and the drinking and what we do here is very just American. Like,
yeah.
They don't do that in Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the parades are mostly American as well.
Typical.
Yeah. I mean, the parades are based on Irish American immigrant history. Like they're groups that they formed during the time when they needed representation.
Yeah.
Like the bagpipe groups and things like that. Those were all formed because they were immigrants and they were trying to form communities here in America. Whereas in Ireland, they didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's not like a big thing because they're like, we already
have our stance here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they're not celebrating their homeland because they're in their homeland, I guess. I don't know. Okay. But yeah, that's what I got for you.
Perfect. Well, on that note, let's close things out. You can check out our show notes or any of our social media bios for a link called our link tree where you can find access to all of our social media accounts, Amazon storefront, cool things that we have found as we add on to them, anywhere you can listen to the podcast, all the fun things like that. You can listen to our podcast anywhere that you want to essentially at this point. And best way to support us is by interacting with our content, both on actual podcast episodes and on social media as you see it. So leave a review, comment, share our podcast with people you think will like it. We're having a blast with this, and almost, I don't want to say it yet. I'm not going to say it yet. But yeah.
Yeah. If you have an idea for an episode or a case, go ahead and DM us on social media. Also, if you have a fun story, maybe about St. Patrick's Day, you can share that with us as well. And we'd love to put it together and share it on the podcast here with a few stories.
The next episode, you guys are jumping back into leprosy on Monday.
You'll get back on track.
Back on track. Don't worry. We're going to do Memorial Day next. It's our next holiday. We have it planned, so we won't lie to you.
Yeah. So getting back to leprosy, which is
that was a fun recording.
Exciting.
Yeah, I like that one.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
But it's also very sad and also has to do with religion.
Yeah.
So,
all right, friends. Well, class is dismissed.
Stay safe.
Stay curious.
And don't try this at home.
Unless you own a bone saw.
Unless you're trying to dye river green for St. Patrick's Day.
I wonder if people we couldn't dye like a pool green because the water is stagnant and so it doesn't flow out, you know?
Yeah, that'd be gross.
Gross.
I mean, you could leave it unattended for a long period of time and then it'd turn green.
Basically my childhood pool.
That's nasty.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. We discuss the history of medicine, not your personal medical situation. Nothing you hear on this show should ever be taken as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Some of the information discussed may be incorrect or become outdated over time. We do our best to stay current with medical knowledge, but medicine changes quickly. Additionally, because we do not work in every specific field we discuss, there may be times when we misspeak or misinterpret information. We're all human and we're doing our best for the podcast. Every medical case is unique, and your health decisions should always be made in consultation with your own qualified healthcare professional. If you have any questions or concerns about your health, please reach out to a licensed provider who can give you guidance based on your individual needs.